Liam's sudden return and his confession to Elena complicate the already tangled emotions. How will Elena face her mate and the unknown threats they both face? Elena and Liam love in secrets. Elena's inner world is filled with questions and pain. Subscribe to our channel to find the answers together. Chapter 12 Elena's POV. I woke up, and I looked around confused. It was dark outside and I could hear wolves in the distance howling. I sat up as I remembered what happened. They had weakened me so I wouldn't hurt anyone or myself. I looked out the window sadly wondering how it would be if he hadn't rejected me. Did he actually not want me? He looked happy that day in my Jeep, so it didn't make sense how he just changed his mind. I heard Athena whimper in the back of my head. I'm sorry, Athena. This is all my fault that you don't have a mate. I wish you had a different human so you'd have your mate, I told her sadly in my head. It's not your fault, Elena. And I wouldn't want to be with anyone else no matter what comes our way. I love both you and Stella, and we will get through this. But I feel like something is wrong, Elena. He wouldn't just reject us. I sighed as I told her he just didn't want to be with us and he wanted something before he left. I blinked the tears away as she shut me out and someone opened the door to my room. Oh baby. I'm glad you're finally up, said my mom, hugging me tightly with tears in her eyes. As soon as she said that, I heard hurried footsteps coming up the stairs as the rest of my family ran in my room and jumped on my bed and hugged me. See, can't breathe, I said as all of them were on top of me hugging me. We are sorry, it's just we missed you. You were out for a while and we are glad to see our annoying little baby sister up, said Nick. Yeah, we need you. Everything has been quiet without you, even if it was just a couple days. Felt like forever. We missed you, always talking and laughing at the wrong time, said Sapphire. Yeah, even your annoying pranks, said Elijah. You know what? No, we didn't forget, I said that, said Elijah, laughing. Yeah, don't say that ever again, said Theo, as everyone agreed and laughed. I looked around at my family wondering how I ended up with such an amazing and supportive family. How long was I out for? I asked them. You were out for 3 days, said my grandma from the corner of the room. What? 3 days? I asked with shock. Yeah, now let me make sure everything is okay with you and check on your wolf and vampire, okay, said the pack doctor coming through the door. I just nodded silently as he examined me. After 10 minutes of him examining me, he was finally done, and everything was okay with the weakening. Everything is as it should be, but I'm very weak, so to be careful. After he left, everyone stood quietly looking at each other. Is everything okay? I asked them quietly. Yeah, but we just have to talk to you about something. Oh, about what? I asked them. The royal ball coming up soon. Will you be okay to go, Elena? Asked my grandma. Of course I will, I said, smiling. I was smiling, but in the inside I was dying. I'm in so much pain, but I didn't want to worry them. They have worried enough about me, and I will keep faking it till I can't anymore. So can I get some food? I said while getting up. Which was a bad choice because soon I was falling from my legs being too weak. Oops, I said as Theo caught me. Everyone looked at me worriedly. I'm fine, I just haven't used my legs in 3 days, I said with a laugh. I walked past them smiling, but as soon as I passed them the smile dropped. I have never felt this weak in my life, and I was starting to get mad because I was struggling to even walk. When I was finally on the last step, I let out a breath because I was exhausted. But I couldn't show them I was struggling, or they won't let me do anything or go anywhere. I walked into the kitchen and sat down on a kitchen stool while my mom warmed me up some leftover lasagna. I ate it quietly as they talked about who knows what because I wasn't listening, and instead I was thinking about certain blue eyes. At the thought of him, I felt pain through my heart, making me tense up and want to cry. In my head, my wolf whimpered and I heard my vampire cry out to our mate. I sighed and told them I was going to get ready for bed because I was going to school tomorrow. Are you sure you're ready to go to school? You just woke up, Elena, said my dad worriedly. Yes, Dad, I'm fine. Good night, I said while telling everyone good night. I walked into my room and went into the bathroom and took a shower. As soon as I got under the shower head, I couldn't hold it anymore. I burst out crying and fell to the ground, hugging my knees to my chest. My whole body was shaking as I cried into myself. I could hear Stella and Athena crying with me and in pain. I finally decided to get up, wash off, and get ready for bed. I looked at the clock next to my bed and saw that it was 12:00 a.m. I had spent 2 hours in the bathroom crying. I sighed as I got under the covers and I brought the covers up to my face as I hugged the blanket. I was drifting off to sleep, and a few tears fell as I saw him. Soon after that, I fell asleep with a heavy heart. Chapter 13 Elena's POV. I woke up to the sound of my alarm. I sighed as I turned it off and got up to get ready for school. I walked into the bathroom and looked in the mirror. I looked pale, I had dark circles under my eyes and my eyes didn't have the light in them that they always did. I sighed and finished what I had to do in the bathroom, then changed into some white sweats, a white cropped hoodie, and some white Nike Air Forces. I didn't have the energy to dress up, so I grabbed my stuff and headed downstairs and into the kitchen where everyone else was eating. As soon as I walked in, everyone stopped what they were doing and looked at me. "Good morning, sweetie. How are you feeling?" asked my mom with a smile but sadness in her eyes. "Good morning. I'm good, Mom," I said with a smile, but in reality I wanted to tell her how bad I felt. I looked at what she had and I looked at usually I would have devoured a whole plate. But today I didn't feel like eating, I wasn't hungry, so I waited for them to be finished eating in the living room. I sat there staring at the wall till something came up to my head. I got up and went back to the kitchen as everyone was walking out. "Hey, when's the ball?" I asked my mom this weekend, and it's going to be held by the witches this year, said my mom. "Okay, goodbye, I'll see y'all after school." I was kind of excited because that meant I would see my other grandma, the witch queen. And when me and my grandmas got together, it was never good. I walked out to my car and got in as my sister got in, and so did Asher and Theo. Why aren't y'all taking a third car?" I asked my brothers, who has gotten in the back. "Because we didn't feel like it, now drive or else we are all going to be late, sister," said Asher. I sighed and just drove, knowing why they were doing this. I listened to the music as my brothers talked about some game that they watched last night. I saw the school building coming up and I began to feel nervous. Oh God, this was a terrible idea. I should have stayed home. I rubbed my hands on my sweats as they started to feel sweaty. I could feel my wolf pacing in my head and my vampire was as nervous as I was. I pulled into my parking spot and turned off my car, and just sat there trying to force myself out of the car. "Okay, Elena. Breath in, breath out, breath in, breath." "Elena, are you going to get out?" asked Asher. "Why, yeah, I'm coming," I said nervously. I took one last breath and then stepped out the car. I looked outside and saw that all our friends were here. I could feel tingles, which meant that Liam was somewhere looking at me. Just the thought of him looking at made me shiver. I was pulled out of my thoughts when I was tackled in a hug by Sophie and Madeline. "OMG, where have you been?" Elena asked Sophie. "Yeah, we missed you. Don't do that to us ever again," said Madeline. "Sorry, I was busy," I said, hugging them back. While they talked about who knows what, I could feel his stare and I could smell his amazing scent, which I had missed. I slowly started relaxing just from his scent. I could feel him getting closer, so I decided it was the times for me to leave. As I felt him join us, I just walked away without saying anything to my siblings. I could tell he was about to say something, but I don't have the strength to sit there and listen to him talk when all I want to do is be in his arms and cry for all the pain he's caused me. I sighed as I got further away from him and walked in through the front doors as I heard Nick calling me. I felt guilty for ignoring him, but I didn't want to look back. If I did, I would look at him and I couldn't take it. As I walked into my first class, I looked up at the clock and noticed I'm in 35 minutes early. I just went plugged in my headphones and starting working on some work. As I was finishing up my last page I was going to do, everyone started walking in. I decided to look out the window and out into the forest. I was so busy in my thoughts that I didn't notice that my siblings and friends had came in and Theo was trying to get my attention. "Elena, Luna, Michelson. What? Sorry, I was thinking. What do you want, Theo?" I asked my brother. "I was asking why you just left like that." "Nick was calling you," said Theo. "No reason, I just wanted to finish work," I said while I got up to turn work in. I left it on her desk and turned around to walk back to my seat when Liam walked in and we bumped into each other, him knocking me down, but before I touched the ground he caught me and helped me up. I felt the spark stronger than ever, making me gasp. They felt so good, so right, just how it felt right being in his arms. Thanks," I breathed out and walked to my seat. I could feel him walking behind me, looking at the back of my head. I sat down and I looked at my sisters, who were giving me worried looks. I just gave them a reassuring smile as I looked out the window for the rest of class while he looked at me. It was finally lunchtime and we all sat down. Everyone had food but me. Once again I wasn't feeling hungry, and I was feeling nauseous from all the nerves I was getting from him sitting right in front of me. I was quiet the whole time and in my own world. From across the room I could feel MS. Bimbo glaring at me, but I choose to ignore her and just listen to what these people were talking about. "So were y'all invited to the royal ball?" asked Lucas. We all tensed up as he asked the question. No one said anything, so I rolled my eyes and answered him. "Yes, we were invited," I said, talking for the first time. "OMG. Now we can all go shopping for our ball dresses," said Sophie. "No one knew we were royalty except our own families. Everyone else thinks we are your normal everyday wolves," but how wrong they were. Usually they would be able to feel the power coming from us, but my mom being a witch did a spell to hide the power, and to hide my dad's vampire scent and my witch and vampire as well. I just smiled as we all got up to go to gym class. We walked into the lockers to put on the gym uniforms. We all walked out and we saw the boys, so we walked to them. I could feel people looking at me up and down, and it made me feel uncomfortable, and apparently Liam saw too because he let out a low growl making people bow to him except me and my family. He looked at us confused, and I just rolled my eyes and sat down on the ground near the bleachers. Soon the teacher walked in and spilt us into groups. I was stuck with Liam, of course, because apparently we can't seem to stay away from each other, Madeline and Theo. The class continued, and the whole time we had to be touching each other due to Theo and Madeline working together. As soon as class finished, I changed and speed walked to my car. I was feeling so overwhelmed from all the sparks and tingles that were going up my arms. I saw him come towards me and he looked like he wanted to talk to me, but I ignored him and continued to the car and waited for everyone to come out because apparently we were all going to the mall. As soon as everyone that was going in the car with me got in, I pulled out and drove to the mall with people following me and some in front. I sighed as I thought about having to spend more time with my mate, being out through that pain and not being able to be in his arms. Chapter 14, Elena's POV. I pulled up to the mall and found a parking spot near the front. I turned off my car and waited for everyone to get out. I put my head on the steering wheel debating if I should just leave and tell them something came up. Why do I have to get stuck in situations like this? I just wanted my mate. And instead I got someone who wants nothing to do with me. Elena, hurry up, said my brother Asher. I sighed and got out anyways, the whole time my heart feeling like it's being ripped apart. I wonder if he feels what I feel. Because if he does, how is he doing so well at hiding it? Okay, let's go, I told them quietly as I walked in first. First store we walked into was Forever 21 and I got some skirts from there. Then we just walked around till we were all standing in front of Victoria's Secret. As the boys were arguing about how they didn't want to go in, I rolled my eyes and walked in without them noticing, or so I thought, but I could feel his eyes on me the whole time. I was walking around the store picking up some cute panties and bras when I felt him right behind me, causing me to tense up at how close he was to me. I could feel his breath on me. Elena, can we talk? Please, he said quietly in my ear. I shivered at feeling him so close. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him smirk at seeing his effect on me. There's nothing to talk about, I told him quietly. Elena, you know that's not true, please. Just let me explain, he said quietly. There's nothing to explain, Liam. You didn't want me and rejected me. Nothing more, I told him. He grabbed me by my waist and turned me around so that I was facing him. Hand still on my waist, he pulled me closer so that our fronts were touching. Leaning down closer, he put one hand on my cheek, rubbing it and looking into my eyes. I've tried so hard to stay away from you, Elena, but I can't seem to stay away. I always somehow end up near you or touching. It's like the universe also wants us together. But it's more complicated than that, he said quietly while rubbing my cheek. Then tell me so I can understand. You're hurting me, Liam, and it's getting harder every day. So please help me understand, I told him sadly. But he was cut off by my brother Theo. What the hell is going on here, he said angrily. I looked at us and noticed how close we were. Our fronts were touching. His hand was on my waist and the other was on my face, and we were so close that I could have pushed myself up and we could have kissed. I looked at everyone and everyone was looking at us confused, and my sisters had worried faces. I sighed and mumbled a quiet nothing and went to look at some more lingerie. I picked out a few more stuff and then went to pay. The total ended up being $120.50. I didn't get that much stuff, did I? I quickly paid and walked out and waited for everyone to come out. Soon everyone joined me and we headed to our cars and drove to a restaurant nearby. We all walked in and we were taken to a large table in the back for all of us to sit together. We were all looking at the menu when a waitress came and started asking us for our drinks. I looked up as she started talking and my face scrunched up in disgust. The girls' boobs were practically all out and they were all up in my mate's face. So what can I get for you, sexy? Asked the waitress in an annoying high-pitched voice. Water, he mumbled with a look of disgust on his own face. She puffed up her boobs more and said in a seductive voice, if you need anything else at all, you come to me, okay, sexy? I could feel Stella and Athena trying to break through, causing me to tense up. They were pushing so hard that my head was starting to hurt, and I started to get lightheaded. Are you okay? What is happening? Asked Sapphire in my head, looking at me with panic. Elena, your eyes, said Celeste. I quickly looked down and shut my eyes closed. I felt them slowly start to go back to normal, so I looked up at my sisters who nodded their head. I sighed and made eye contact with Liam, who was looking at me with confusion. I just ignored him and looked at the menu until this other boy came and asked for our food. Everyone ordered and finally it was just me. "What can I get for you?" he said. I looked up at him and he was a cute-looking dude, but he could never compare to Liam. "I'll just take a chicken Alfredo and some lemonade please," I told him. Coming right up," he said while looking at me up and down with a look of lust in his face. I heard Liam growl, but I chose to ignore him, and instead started listening to what they were talking about. "So do y'all know the theme of the ball this year?" asked Sophie. "I heard it was going to be a masquerade ball," I told them. "OMG, how exciting," said Madeline. "So does everyone have a date?" asked Sophie. There was a lot of no's, as the only people that had dates were Theo, Madeline, and Sophie, whose mate was Liam's best friend. Soon the food came and everyone started eating. I could still feel Stella and Athena trying to get out for some reason. I felt like something bad was going to happen and I felt anxious. I could feel it at the pit of my stomach. I was biting my lip and looking around, which is what I would do in situations like this, and my siblings seemed to notice because soon they were asking me what was wrong. "What's wrong? Why are you looking around like that?" asked Elijah. "I don't know, something is not right," I told them through the mind link. I looked up to see all of them looking at me and then looking around worriedly. "Maybe it's just me worrying about nothing. Let's just ignore it and have fun," I told them with a smile. But inside I knew something was going to happen, so did Stella and Athena. I continued to eat when out of nowhere I smelt blood, causing me to tense. I could feel my eyes turning red and I could feel my fangs starting to come out. Chapter 15. Elena's POV. I quickly picked up that fancy rag napkin they always give out at the fancy restaurants and hid my face behind it and looked down. I saw Theo and Elijah quickly get up and come towards me. But the smell of blood just kept getting stronger. Usually I would have been able to hide the fact that I could smell blood, but with me being weaker than usual it's hard for me to control this, and the blood smells so good. "Are you okay? Or do we need to leave?" asked Theo quietly as he came and kneeled beside me. "It's very strong, Theo, and there's a lot too. Too much for it to be an accident," I told him quietly. I saw him look up at our siblings, mind linking them, but I was too busy trying to not go crazy from the smell of blood to pay attention to what they were saying. "What is wrong with her?" asked Liam. "Don't worry about it," growled out Theo. I closed my eyes as I could smell more, causing the smell to be stronger. I could feel myself start to shake and I knew I was soon going to lose control. I couldn't hold it anymore. I covered my mouth and nose with the napkin as I quickly got up, causing the chair to fall back with a loud noise. I ran outside as I felt like I was about to lose control. I walked to the side of the building toward my car when I saw a body in the alleyway bleeding out. It was the waitress that we had first, bleeding in the alleyway. I slowly walked towards the body while making sure my nose and mouth were still covered. I bent down to check her pulse and I felt nothing. I sighed. Someone had done this to her and just left her here, and from the looks of it she had gotten stabbed multiple times. I stood up fast as I felt someone coming up behind me. But I was too late. They already had me by my neck on the wall. "We've been looking for you everywhere, Elena. But we found you and you're not getting away this time," he said with a look of lust. "Let me go, Derek. My family is in there," I told him as best I could with him choking me. Beautiful, Elena. I see your mate hasn't marked you yet, which means I could still have you for myself. The strong pups we could have," he said with lust in his voice as his face was in the crook of my neck inhaling my scent. I'm not having your pee pups. You're delusional," I told him as I was starting to lose conscious from the lack of air. He punched me hard on the face as soon as I said that and squeezed harder. "Yes, you will, Elena, and we will be powerful and rule both kingdoms together. But first we have to stop the prophecy," he said, mumbling the last part so quiet I almost didn't hear him. The last thing I saw before I passed out was my mate coming towards me, and feeling the sparks I got from him touching me. Liam's POV. Spending the whole day with her had driven me and my wolf crazy. All I wanted was for her to be in my arms and make her smile. And I felt even more bad because I know it's my fault that she is feeling like this. I tried staying away from her, but the mate bond made that impossible. I had not slept right ever since that night I had rejected her. But I did this for her so that she would be safe and so that everyone else would also be safe. I tried telling her, but then her brother interrupted us. I just don't know how much longer I would be able to stay away from her. Smelling her intoxicating scent and then seeing how gorgeous she was. She's so sweet but can be mean to the ones that are rude to her. She would make the perfect Luna queen. She was practically born to rule, and I could see that in the way that she carried herself and treated others. I sighed, knowing I would have to wait a while longer. The day that I rejected her, I went home after what happened in her car due to my beta mind linking me and telling me he had found another death threat. Flashback, what did you find? I asked him. It was another threat, and we also found a dead body next to it. It belonged to us, Liam said my beta. I sighed as I opened the letter. Dear Alpha King, I heard you found your mate, and not only do you now have your mate, but you also have what we've been looking for. And we will soon come for it. But for now, reject your mate or your sisters will die. I'm always watching them, so remember that when you think about getting close to your mate. P.S. We are also watching your mate, so as soon as we see something sneaky, she will also go. DM. End of flashback. I sighed as I remember that. I've been looking for the son of a bitch threatening my family and my mate, so that I could finally be with her. But I have no idea who DM could possibly be, and I need to figure it out soon or I will lose her. I can already tell she's weaker from the rejection, as she doesn't act the same, and you could see how physically and mentally tired she is. I was pulled out of my thoughts as I saw her hide her face behind the rag. What is wrong with her? I asked Theo, who was now kneeling beside her. Don't worry about it, growled out Theo. As I was about to say something, my beautiful Elena stood up, knocking the chair over, and ran out the restaurant door. I was about to run after her when I was pulled into Theo by the collar of my shirt. You stay away from her. I don't know what it is that you want with her, but Elena is not what you are looking for. People like you are not good for her. Now back off or else you're going to regret it, he gritted out. I pushed him off of me as my brother stood in front of me. Or else what, pup? Stay in your place. Remember who the fuck you're talking to, I growled out. I was surprised to not see him submit, which made my curiosity for this family grow. I ignored him and walked out to look for my mate. What I saw made my blood boil. I started to shift, making me have my claws out and have fur starting to come out of my body. I saw someone grabbing my mate by the neck and inhaling her. As I went to her, the person disappeared out of nowhere, but not before hearing him mumble about some prophecy and him saying that he would be back for her soon. I looked around confused, but soon I was running towards her as I heard her whimper as she was falling. I quickly caught her and started carrying her towards her car, as everyone else came out running from the restaurant. What did you fucking do to her? Growled out Theo, which for some reason didn't want me near his sister. I didn't do anything to her, Theo. I found her like this. Some dude had her by her back, choking her as he was saying stuff to her. I spat out angrily. He went to take her out of my arms, but I pulled her closer and growled at him. Don't touch her, I spat at him. What do you mean don't touch her? She's my sister and needs help. We need to take her home, he spat back at me. Okay, Theo, just let him take her back home. We need to go to mom and dad, said Celeste with panic. Whatever, he mumbled out angrily. I soon got in her car with her on my lap as we all rushed to her house. Chapter 16, Elena's POV. I slowly opened my eyes as I felt myself start to wake up. I groaned as the lights hit my eyes. Soon I heard them turn off. I opened my eyes and saw Liam sitting down beside me, looking at me worriedly. What happened? I asked him quietly. You were attacked, he said. As soon as he said that, the memories came rushing back in as I rushed up, remembering what Derek had said. Hey baby, calm down, he said. I just looked up at him as he was talking. I was so scared, Elena. What if I hadn't gotten there when I did? That man could have killed you, he said as he kneeled in front of me. He grabbed my face and looked into my eyes. I would have not been able to live with myself if I had lost you, he said as he pulled me into him as he hugged me, inhaling my scent. He pulled me from him and we stared into each other's eyes. Soon we found ourselves leaning in and soon our lips were touching. I could feel sparks all over my body. Athena was in my head, howling in joy. I wanted to pull away and tell him no, but I couldn't, and instead decided to enjoy this kiss I was getting from my mate. Soon he pulled me into him and sat down with me, straddling his lap. I pushed myself closer, trying to enjoy this moment I was having with him. I ran my hands through his hair, pulling at the bottoms of it as I heard him let out a small growl. Elena, what the hell are you doing now? Asked Theo from the door. I quickly pulled myself from Liam, almost falling in the process, but Liam caught me and helped me up. Theo, it's not what it looks like, I told him as I chased him out the door. Then what is it, Elena? You have a whole mate out there, he said angrily. I know, but I began to say, but he caught me off. But what, Elena? You've been acting like a whore, he said angrily, making everyone else in the living room gasp. Is that why your mate rejected you? Because you were whoring around with the Alpha King, he said. I heard everyone gasp at his harsh words, and I could see my sisters start to get up and make their way towards me. I also saw Liam tense up beside me and I could see him began to shake. Theo, you don't mean that, I told him sadly. You've caused us trouble your whole life, and now we are going to have to worry about you when he gets tired of you and dumps you. If I were your mate I would have rejected you too for whoring around with him and for all the trouble that comes with being around you, he said harshly. But as soon as he said all that, I saw regret flash through his eyes. Elena, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that, he said, walking towards me. I did not ask to be like this. Do you think it feels good to hide who you are, and to always have to watch your back because people are after you? I shouldn't even exist, and here I am, I told him as tears ran down my face. I could see my mate shaking from anger. But I couldn't be here anymore. With my magic I caused the door to fly open, and as everyone turned their heads to look what the noise was, I teleported out of there and into the treehouse. As soon as I was in the treehouse I broke down crying. I was crying because I was rejected, I was crying because my twin brother thought this of me, and because Derek had found me, which meant I probably had to leave soon. And this time I would be leaving alone. Athena started whining in my head at the thought of leaving her mate behind. But she knew that he and everyone else would be safer if I left. They were all happy here. We had never fit in anywhere like this and I couldn't take them away. I could feel the air picking up around me as my emotions were getting out of hand. Elena, calm down, I heard Stella say in my head. I can't. I'm scared. I don't want to go back, I told her through tears. I could feel people trying to mind link me, but I had my wall up. I didn't want to go back to Derek, I couldn't. I can't go back this time, he has me, it's going to be way worse. He already tried it once. When I was 14 I was kidnapped by him and I was there for almost a whole month. He beat me up every day and had me chained and would inject different things into me to keep my witch Stella and Athena down. And before he had the chance to rape me my dad rescued me, but that didn't stop him from touching me. I'm just glad he didn't take all of me with him. I was pulled out of my thoughts as I heard a noise from under the treehouse. I was getting ready to attack when I saw my mate's head pop in through the door. Oh my God, what are you doing here, Liam? You scared me, I told him as I put my hand to my chest. I wasn't going to let you be alone out here when there's a man looking for you, he said. How did you find me? I told him with confusion in my voice. You're my mate, Elena. I just went where the mate bond told me to go, he said. Oh, I told him quietly as I sat down at the window that looked out into the lake. I had threats coming in, he said. I looked up at him confused. Someone was leaving threats with dead bodies from my pack. They somehow knew you were my mate and they threatened you and my sister. I had to reject you, Elena, or my sister would be dead. And then they'd come after you, he said while looking at me. I looked up at him shocked as I felt a little bit of hope. Maybe he did want to be with me but wouldn't because of the threats. So you do want me? I asked him quietly with hope. Of course I want you, Elena, but for now we need to figure out who has been doing this, and who they are also looking for, he said. What do you mean, who they are looking for? I asked him. They said we had someone they wanted, he said, looking at me with thought. My eyes went wide at that. So they had known I was here for a while now. The question is, why did they take so long to show themselves? What's going to happen with us? I said, looking at him with sadness. I don't know, Elena, but for now no one can see we are together, he said. But I started to say, but he caught me off with a sweet gentle kiss. He pulled back from the kiss and pulled me to him, so I was laying on him with my head on his chest. Shoo, Elena, I should have told you earlier, I'm sorry. But I thought you would be safer if you didn't know. But guess I was wrong, he said, pulling me closer to him. If that was even possible, he kissed my forehead as I saw him start to close his eyes, and soon I followed. And that night I got the best sleep I had gotten in a while, and from how he looked it was also the best sleep he had gotten in a while. With that I inhaled his intoxicating scent and cuddled closer to him so my face was in his neck as I fell asleep. Chapter 17, Elena's POV. I woke up with someone leaving small kisses all over my face, and a hand running through my hair. I opened my eyes to be greeted with the blue eyes of my mate who I had began to love, even after everything. Good morning, I said while I looked up at him. Morning, beautiful, he mumbled as he leaned down to kiss my lips. So are you going to tell me why people are after you? He asked me. Let's go back. I'll tell you in there. I need to talk to my parents first, I told him as I leaned my head on his chest and hugged him. He mumbled as he pulled me closer to him and inhaled my scent. He got up after a while and pulled me up with him. Come on, baby. Let's head back, he said as he went down first. I looked out the window and I could have sworn I saw someone looking at me. I just shook of the feeling and followed after Liam. We walked back as we made small talk and got to know each other better. His favorite food was steak, his favorite color was black, He loved the beach just like me, and he was turning 19 in 2 months. I was pulled out my thoughts as we walked in through the back door of the house. "Oh baby, I'm glad you're okay, you had us all worried," said my mom as she squished the life out of me. "I'm okay, Mom, but where is Dad? We need to talk," I told her quietly. "Elena, I'm glad you are okay. But don't do that again, princess," he said as he hugged me. "We need to talk. I didn't get to tell y'all anything that I was told yesterday," I told them. "Okay, let's go to my office," he said. I could feel Liam follow us, which meant that he would have to know. We were mates after all. Hopefully his opinion on me wouldn't change after he found out who I was and what all of us were. My dad walked to his chair behind his desk as my mom stood behind him as my mate sat across my dad with the chair beside him empty for me, but I chose to stand. "It was Derek. He found me," I told them as I looked out the window behind my dad. I heard my dad sigh. "I thought we had more time than this," he said as he looked at my mom. I could already see them start to stress, which made me feel guilty for being the way I am. He said he would be back for me soon since me and my mate hadn't made it yet, which made me wonder how he knew I had found him. Which means he also knows I'm weak right now, and that's why he decided to show himself. "I need everything back," I told them. He was also talking about me having his pups, and he said something about stopping a prophecy before I blacked out, I told them. I heard my mate growl when I said what I said about him wanting me to have his pups. I saw my mom look at him with curiosity and then look back at me, then back at him. Then she let out a small gasp. "It's him," she mumbled out. What are you talking about?" asked my dad, confused. He's her mate. My baby is mated to the future Alpha King," she mumbled out. "What, so you're telling me this is the bastard who rejected and hurt my princess?" growled out my dad as he got up and made his way to my mate, who had now stood up. Liam's face was emotionless as he saw my dad walk to him. He was feeling the disrespect because to him we were regular wolves. He had no idea we were also royalty, and that's why we never bowed to him. I quickly got in front of Liam as my dad was now standing in front of him. But my height was nothing compared to theirs. I stooped just below both of their shoulders so they were still face to face. "Dad, please let him explain," I told him as I pushed him back. "Did you reject her cause she's just a normal wolf? Or what was your reason for rejecting her?" Alpha King growled out my dad. He said Alpha King with distaste. "No, I would never reject her because she was normal. She's my mate, she was made for me, and I would never care what her rank was," he growled out as his eyes started to turn black. I saw a look of approval from my dad as he looked at Liam. "I had to reject her. I would never willingly reject her. I was getting threats and people from my pack were dying. They told me that if I didn't reject her they'd kill my sister, and then they'd go after Elena," he said angrily. "I think it was Derek because they also told him that he had something they wanted. Which also means he knew we were here for a while, but he decided to let us know now," I told them as I made a face to tell them I was what they were looking for. "I think it's time I get them back," I told them quietly, talking about Stella, Athena, and my witch powers. "I don't know, Elena, you're still rejected and now we know why he did it. But doesn't mean he will be with you. He's still getting threats," said my dad while looking at me sadly. I just looked down. He was right. Me and Liam could be okay right now, but he could go back to avoiding me and not talking to me. And just the thought made pain shoot through my heart. "He's my mate. I think he should know," I mumbled out. I should know what he said as I saw worry flash through his eyes but quickly disappeared. "I think all of them should know. His sister is mated to Theo," I told them. I looked up at my parents as I saw them look at each other as they were mind-linking. Soon my dad made eye contact with me and nodded his head as the door opened and in walked the rest of my siblings and Liam's, who has apparently spent the night. I saw Theo look at me, as he looked like he wanted to say something. But I ignored him. "It's time for them to know," I told them. "Why?" asked Theo. "Well, first of all your mate needs to know, and second of all so does mine," I told him with an attitude. "Who's your mate?" he asked with the same attitude. "I am," said Liam as he stood up and went to stand behind me. All of my sibling looked shocked and so did his except Celeste and Sapphire. "And Theo seemed to notice that you two knew about this. And let me talk to her that way," he growled out. "Well, she tried telling you. And you just ignored her," yelled out Celeste. "Elena. I'm sorry, you know I didn't mean," started Theo but was caught off by a loud bang as something came in flying through the window aiming for my head. I was soon on the floor with Liam's body on top of mine covering me. "Baby, are you?" Liam started but was cut off by a scream. Chapter 18, Elena's POV. I looked back to see who was screaming and it was Celeste. She had an arrow in her body with a note stuck to her body. I quickly pushed Liam off of me as I ran to Celeste. She was losing color in her face. I saw Nick reach down to pull it out, but he hissed as he came in contact with it. Silver, I heard him mumble. My vision was starting to get blurry as I saw my mom hugging Sapphire as they both sobbed. Give them back, I can heal her. I will be fine, please, I said as I looked up at my dad with tears running down my face. What if you can't? The pain is going to be too much, he said, looking up at me sadly. Do it, we are wasting time, I yelled at him. I looked down at Celeste again and saw her coughing up blood. And where she had the arrow it looked as if she had burnt herself. It was a nasty color. And it was starting to look darker. And if I didn't heal her soon she wouldn't survive this. The pack doctor would not be able to save her. He looked up at my mom as they were mind-linking, and then they both looked up at me and then looked back down at Celeste, and my dad nodded his head as my mom came up to me and kneeled down beside me as she touched my head with both her hands and muttered something under her breath. Soon I doubled over in pain as everything came in like a punch to the guts. I thought what I felt before was torture, but this was way worse as I felt everything Athena and Stella felt, all the pain they had held back from me. I got it all. Then I could smell the blood, and it smelt amazing now that I fully have her back. The smell of blood is much stronger and I crave it more. I realized that I was shaking and crying because of how overwhelming this all was. Getting it all at once. I looked up through my tear-filled eyes at my parents who were now in front of me comforting me. Princess, you have to do this now, my dad mumbled in my ear softly. I nodded as I swallowed the lump in my throat. My whole body felt like it was on fire. Everything hurt. I got up from where I was with the help of my dad as I rushed to where Celeste was and dropped to my knees by her side. I looked down at all the blood as I felt my eyes turning red. I looked up at my dad who looked at me with worried eyes. It's Celeste, Elena. Control yourself, you are stronger than this, said my dad in my head as he looked down at me. I nodded as I slowly gripped the arrow and slowly pulled it out to not damage anything in its way. I quickly pulled off the note and put it in my pocket. I heard gasps behind me as they saw me touch the silver-covered arrow like it was nothing. To me, silver didn't affect me as bad as it would a regular wolf. It would take a special kind of silver to hurt me that would kill a regular wolf in minutes. Same with vervain, it would take a lot and a special blend to affect me. I pulled out and blood started pouring out of her so fast that I felt my fangs start to come out. I quickly threw the arrow aside as I put my hands over her wound as blood quickly covered my hands. I imagined all the silver-covered blood coming out her body. As I opened my eyes, I looked to see the ball of blood floating over her body as a large bowl was placed beside me to put the silver-coated blood. I concentrated on her wound closing up. I imagined her skin slowly closing up. As I felt my hands warm up as I started to feel pain in my stomach where she recently had her wound. Behind me I once again heard someone gasp. But I ignored them as I continued to heal her. I could feel my body begin to become heavy, as I now also felt what she had felt. I could feel tears going down my face at all the emotions going through me at the moment. I could feel my body shaking and heating up as my thirst for blood also grew. Once I felt like she was healed, I quickly backed up from her and looked at my hands. I was feeling like a druggie, like I had been in rehab and there was drugs right in front of me, tempting me to take some. I looked up and saw my brothers looking at me. I saw Theo looking at me with sympathy as he came to me. She needs more blood, I mumbled as Theo came up to me and picked me up and hugged me close to him. I know, Elena, I know. We got it now, thank you, he mumbled as he hugged me tighter to him. I'm sorry I said all that stuff to you, Elena, I didn't mean it. I've just been so worried about you, he whispered to me. I know, I whispered. I looked around and saw that the pack doctor had arrived and that he was checking her and he was putting stuff into her. As everyone else was looking at me with shock. But I was looking for certain blue eyes to calm me down. But they were nowhere to be seen. I began to panic as I didn't see him anywhere. I looked around but he was still nowhere to be seen. I looked up at Theo as he looked down at me sadly and shook his head. He left, he told me with sympathy in his voice. I began to panic, as I knew what this meant. He didn't accept me for who I was, which meant we were back at square one. I began to hyperventilate. I quickly pushed Theo off me as I ran out the room and into one of the many halls in this huge house. I broke down crying from all the pain I felt as I knew that once again he didn't want me. I could feel my heart breaking. My wolf was in my head, howling in pain, calling out to his wolf. I ran my hands through my face to wipe my tears and I ended up wiping the blood on my mouth. I tensed up as I tasted the blood. I hadn't had blood in forever. Even though I'm not full vampire, I have problems with my bloodthirst. That's why I sometimes hated being a vampire. My dad knew that I had trouble when it came to that. I've always had a problem with losing control. I was like an addict and was addicted to cocaine. I looked up to see my brothers looking at me. My eyes were full on red and my fangs were out at this point and I was in pain. I needed release. I was like a bomb waiting to explode and my brothers knew that. As they walked quickly but with caution, I saw the syringe in their hand and teleported from there to the human town nearby in an alleyway, where I knew there'd be drunk humans. And what I needed most right now was blood and alcohol, so I found my victim and soon had him cornered as I told him not to scream and sunk my teeth into his neck as I felt like a druggie finally getting his drugs. Chapter 19 Elena's POV. I could feel my heart breaking for the millionth time. I've decided that I'll never be happy. I wasn't meant to find happiness and I'll always be on the run. Which reminded me that I needed to leave soon before Derek actually started going through with his threats and I knew where I was going. I bit into the neck of my third victim as I felt the pain, enjoying the feeling of euphoria as I drank his blood. That feeling I will never get tired of, even though everything that's happened to me due to also having my witch and Stella, I wouldn't want it any other way. Even if that means I'll never be happy. Because they are my happiness, they are what are keeping me sane. I could feel the life of the human in my arms slipping away. I quickly pulled away to realize that I pulled away too late. I was so in my thoughts to realize that he had been dying for the past couple minutes. I let out another sob as I fell to the ground but was caught by someone. I looked up to be met by the hazel eyes of my brother Elijah. I didn't mean to kill him, I promise, I said as another sob escaped my body. I know. Elena, I know. You'll be okay, he whispered as he pulled me closer to him. She killed the other two too, I heard Nick say to Asher W. But I stopped. I know I did, I whispered to Elijah. Check again, I yelled at my brothers who were now looking at me. Elena. They're gone, said my brother as if he were talking to a little kid. I did it again, I mumbled to myself as Elijah just sighed and kissed my forehead and hugged me tighter. Mom teleported us here, said Theo as they all looked at me with sympathy. I closed my eyes as I imagined us being in the living room of our house. I soon felt the breeze and knew we were in our living room. I opened my eyes as I heard someone gasp. I looked up and saw my mom looking at me with tears in her eyes. As my dad just looked ready to kill someone. Oh, Elena, you didn't mean to. You're okay, we will help you with this like we always do, she said as she came up to me and hugged me. Soon I was sobbing in her arms as I looked up and saw all my brothers and dad looking down at the ground with anger. Celeste, I muttered as I pulled away from my mom. She's fine, baby. Thanks to you, she will be walking around tomorrow like nothing happened, she told me sadly. I looked in the corner and saw Madeline and Sophia with their brothers. -1. And seeing them and not the person I needed most just caused the pain in my chest to grow as I doubled over in pain, clutching my shirt right above my heart. I need a shower, I mumbled as I slowly got up and slowly made my way to the stairs. I could feel my whole body aching and I was so weak that I didn't know if I would make it up the stairs. I took one step. And that step felt as if I had just taken 20. Soon I felt myself be lifted up as I looked up and saw my dad carrying me up the stairs. Thank you, I whispered to him. Of course, baby. You are so strong and I'm proud of you, never forget that. And never forget that we will always be here for you, and you don't need anyone else, he said softly, and as he put me down in front of my door, and leaned down to hug me tight and kissed my forehead. Thank you, Daddy, I said as I hugged him back. I walked into my room and went straight to the bathroom and, oh my. I looked a mess, I was covered in blood and dirty. I could see the blood in my hair and on my face. I quickly got in the shower and got under the hot burning water, and watched as the dirty and bloody water came to the bottom and went into the drain. I could feel Stella and Athena and the way they were feeling was not okay. I wish I could change things so that they wouldn't have to suffer. Because of me they are jealous. I washed my body and got out and went and laid in my bed dripping and wrapped in a towel and got under my covers and curled up into a ball as I felt myself start to cry again. Soon I fell asleep. Chapter 20 Elena's POV. I woke up with the sun in my face. I went to get up but realized I was still wrapped in a towel from my shower last night. All I felt was numb. I could feel the pain but it was distant. Like I was there but I wasn't. I went into my closet and changed into some black sweats and a black crop top and added a jacket as it was cold today. It was 7:00 a.m. I could make it to school. But first I would go see Celeste. I walked out of my room and down the hall and down the stairs. I could hear people talking as I got closer to the kitchen. But as I got closer the talking stopped. But I ignored them. Elena was the last thing I heard before I closed the door. I made my way to the hospital. I walked for a couple minutes before I came face to face to Celeste's door. I had my hand on the door as I was waiting to push it open. I hesitated for a little before I finally pushed it open, and there sat my beautiful sister. Celeste, I whispered. Oh, Elena, she said, looking at me sadly. I am sorry, it's my fault you got hurt. That arrow was aimed for my head, Celeste. The longer I stay here, the more danger I put you all in, Celeste. I'm so sorry, I told her as I hugged her tight, knowing she was okay. Elena, it is not your fault and you know it. It's his, she said in disgust. Don't worry, Celeste, I will make it better. And all of you will be safe again, I said as I looked up at her one more time before walking out the door. Elena, what do you mean? What are you talking about? I swear was the last thing I heard before I slammed the door shut. Eleni, I heard her yell as I made my way out the hospital doors and made my way back towards the house to get my car. I pulled up at school and saw my siblings parked in their usual spots. They had surprised looks on their faces along with his siblings. I ignored them and continued on my way to class. I sat in my usual seat and just spaced out. The royal ball was in 2 weeks. I had 2 weeks left here before I would leave. I heard the bell ring as I saw everyone getting up. I looked around surprised. I spaced out for all of class. I was walking to my next class, and I could hear my siblings calling me. I ignored them and continued on until I bumped into someone. I am sorry, I wasn't looking where I was. Go dash. Liam, I said with shock as I looked up at him. I heard my brothers in the back growl. What are you doing here? Evans asked Elijah as he came to stand beside me as he pulled me into him. We just moved here, he said, still looking at me. Why here, out of all the places you could have chosen? Asked Asher. Are you okay? He asked, looking down at me. Liam could always read right through me. He could always tell when something was wrong with me. And here he was in front of me after a couple years of not seeing him. Elena, I heard as I went to turn around. I turned to look at the person who had just called my name. It was Ellie, my ex-best friend. I turned back around and walked away towards my next class. I only made it a couple steps before I once again for the 100th time today bumped into someone else. But as I bumped into this person, I felt the sparks. The sparks I loved. I quickly pulled myself back as I looked up at him. Jax, I started to say, but was quickly shut up as he looked at me with a blank face and walked away. I looked down as I tried to hide the tears. I could feel the pain, but I also felt numb. Elena, I heard as I looked up at my brother's angry faces. I looked at all of them and turned back around to head to class. But not before seeing Ellie's and Liam's look of curiosity. I was walking and passed by Liam's siblings who were giving me looks of sympathy. But I ignored them and walked into class. I sat down in my seat as I felt Madeline sit beside me. I just turned my head to look out the window as I smelt him come in. I felt like I could barely breathe. I felt like I was holding my breath underwater, and I had to go up for air. But I was here in class, not underwater. I continued to look out the window as I with my powers opened the window a little so some fresh air could come in. I knew the smell of nature would calm me down. As I finally relaxed a little, the door opened and in walked Liam, Ellie, and Noah, causing me to tense back up. And now the air was thicker than ever, making me feel like it was harder to breathe. I decided to ignore them, as I could feel like 3 different eyes on me. Finally the bell rung and I was the first one out my seat and out the door. I headed towards the cafeteria with the girls walking a couple feet behind me. I sat down in between Elijah and Nick as I laid my head down on Elijah's shoulder and closed my eyes. Do you want food? Asked Nick quietly as both him and Elijah looked down at me. No, I quietly said. I heard Nick sigh. Elena, you have to eat something please, you haven't ate right in days, Elijah said. I'm fine, Elijah, I told him as I looked up at him and gave him a smile. At least some fruit or something please, Elena, we are worried about you, said Nick. Fine, I told him as I got up to get some but was stopped by Madeline and Sophie. Can we please talk to you? I know you don't want to be around any of us. But please don't blame us for what my brother is doing. He has a reason why he's like this. Just let us tell you why, said Madeline. I have nothing against any of you and y'all know that. Come on, let's go outside and talk out there, I told them quietly. We walked out the cafeteria doors that led out to the patio outside. We could still see inside the cafeteria and I saw my siblings looking at me. I sat down facing the cafeteria as I inhaled, relaxing a little. Look, we don't agree with what Liam is doing. But we just thought that it wasn't fair to you that you didn't know why he reacted this way towards you. Said Madeline, we had a sister, Freya, and she was kidnapped by some vampires. And they would send threats, they wanted to weaken us. And they did. When they took her, they would send videos and pictures of them torturing her. And that's until one day they sent her body. She was unrecognizable," said Sophie as they both had tears in their eyes. "So him finding out that you are part vampire. The creature he despises most. He doesn't know what to do and instead immediately pushed you out. He doesn't want to feel like he's betraying her by being with you." "A vampire," said Madeline. I quickly hugged them, ignoring the pain I was feeling by finding out this information. I looked up and saw him sitting at our table, with the bimbo on his lap, causing me to almost double over because of the pain I was feeling in my chest. But instead I cling on to Sophie and Madeline. They were what were keeping me up right now and keeping me from being on the ground. "I'm sorry you guys went through that. I could not imagine. I'm so sorry you'll have to be around me knowing what I am," I said with tears in my eyes. "It's okay, Elena. We know you are not them," they said, wiping the tears from their face. They said goodbye as they left me to think. One of my people did that to their sister, and that's why he wants nothing to do with me. A vampire. I looked back up as the tears kept falling. I put my sunglasses down on my face as I tried to cover the tears the best I could. I looked at him as the bimbo was on him, hugging him and laughing. I could feel my skin burning everywhere she touched on him. Like the moon goddess was punishing me by making me feel everywhere she touched. Someone stepped in front of me, blocking the painful view. I looked up as I saw Liam, Ellie and Noah standing in front of me. I looked behind him and looked up to see the bimbo kissing all on Liam's neck, as I felt my neck burning. I rubbed on my neck and the feeling got worse. "Can I help you?" I asked them, glancing behind them as I felt the pain getting stronger and going down my body. "Elena, we want to talk to you. We didn't leave off good before. We missed all of you. We were all so close. And we are asking y'all for forgiveness. We know we messed up, but we were being threatened. We had no choice. You know we care for all of y'all. Just please, all we ask is for another chance," said Ellie. I looked at them, analyzing them, and I could see that they were being honest. And something in me told me it was time to forgive them. "Okay," I told them as I gave them a small smile as I could feel the pain getting stronger. "Wait, really?" asked Ellie as she was now crying. "Yeah," I said, giving them another small smile. "OMG, Elena, thank you. I missed you and I'm glad to have my best friend back. I'll make it up to you, I promise," she said as she ran to hug me. I saw them all look at each other, and then Noah also came to hug me as he said thank you. They walked off, leaving me and Liam. "Elena, I'm sorry for the way we left off. You know I never meant to hurt you in that way," he said, looking at me sadly. "It's okay," I told him quietly as the pain increased. "No, it's not okay, Elena. I hurt you. You trusted me and I hurt you. We were together," he said. I looked behind him as the pain became unbearable. I saw her stroking him under the table. Soon it became hard to breathe as I felt Stella try to come out. "Elena, what's wrong?" I heard him say as I was soon falling back as he caught me. Last thing I saw were my siblings rushing outside yelling at Liam. The video is about to end, but the story of Elena and Liam continues. Don't forget to subscribe for exclusive content in the next chapter.